What were some other challenges in the early days at that time? Because I'm sure as an entrepreneur, especially building what's now, come to be known as a billion-dollar business,
Yeah.
there were tons of little obstacles and challenges. Do you remember some in those early days where you just thought, shit, I don't know how I'm going to get through this one? Or anything like
well, the good news is that that to be a good entrepreneur, you have to have some level of ignorance.
that? Right, yes.
Right?
You have to be stupid enough to try.
Because
Yeah.
if you knew everything that was coming, you wouldn't do it. There's no way you would do it.
Right.
But that's the fun. I look back on those first couple of years that were just chaos. Like, sales tax numbers and, inventory that you had, I had no idea to sell one pair of size 7s. I had to have from 5s through 12s because I didn't know what size foot's coming in the store, right?
Right.
So this huge inventory. If I'd have known how much inventory I had to buy just to sell boots, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Right, yeah.
Another thing is, had I realized that Americans didn't get sheepskin like Australians do, they think, it's hot, it's prickly, it's delicate, can't get it wet, But Australians know it's so, you can't tear sheepskin, it's so tough. You get it wet, you wash it. You put them on, that's why they were so good with surfers. You can put them on with wet feet and it wicks the moisture out and insulates at the same time. But it breathes, so you can't sweat in it.
Right.
But you can go out at minus 20 degrees with no socks on, and it insulates. So sheepskin's got this most amazing properties.
Right.
No Americans knew that. So that was probably the hardest thing that I had to do in building the business, was educate. And it took me a couple of years before I realized I had to educate.
What were some breakthroughs that you realized in terms of how to educate? Like, so for example, say there's entrepreneurs listening to this and maybe their product requires educating their market, but they can't necessarily do it through advertising.
Right.
How did you do that, or what are some tips you recommend?
I remember the day that it happened. I was at a ski show in Las Vegas, and it had been like 4 or 5 days we hadn't written hardly any orders, like almost nothing. And this woman came by and she was telling me all about why she wouldn't buy them, because we sell after ski boots, but we have Sorels, the big rubber boots, and that was their answer to winter. And she said they'll never work in my area because they're too delicate, all those things I just said. And I was so frustrated. I said, look, take your shoe off and put this on now with your bare feet. And she resisted at first, but I finally made her do it. And the instant she pulled them on, she goes, "Oh my God, these are incredible!" And she bought like 60 pairs. 60 pairs because she owned a couple of different shops.
Yeah.
And that was like it was what I'd been waiting for. Because if I hadn't have sold anything at that show, I probably would have quit.
Really?
But she bought 60 pairs, and I thought, oh my God. It's the trying on. So then, from then on, I had every single one of my sales reps. They were not allowed to talk about Ugg boots to a customer without them putting a pair on first.
Smart.
Or one boot on first. Because once it was on, then they would listen. But you could talk to your dead, about them, and nobody got it.
Yeah, until they feel it.
It's the most tactile, sensual feeling, putting sheepskin on bare feet. So cool. And that was the secret of why it's a $1 billion brand as well.
Yeah.
Not only was the marketing and advertising pretty good, but the product itself was fantastic.
Did you ever run into any issues with either competitors or any sort of like lawsuits or anything like that, like cease and desist, competitors, anything like that?
All the time. And the reason is, in Australia, the boots have been around for 50, 60, 70 years, I don't know how long, and nobody registered the name down there when it was building, and eventually one guy did, but there were a lot of competitors from Australia. When I started getting momentum, $2 or $3 million of sales, they all started coming in.
Right.
But they never came back a second year because they didn't realize what it took to be able to take returns, how to ship fill-in sizes.
Right.
They all thought we're just going to sell 100,000 of them and we're gone. It doesn't work that way. So it was my customer service.
Right.
That year after year after year, I kept building, going out to the stores, fixing up the inventory in the stores, being totally on top of what every single retailer was doing, and making sure that, if I had 5s and 13s on the shelf in January, I'd take them away and swap them out for different sizes that I knew they could sell.
Right.
And so all of that customer service is what really the UGG brand became. And these fly-by-nighters, they just didn't last.
Dissolved, yeah. Now, how did you know to prioritize customer service? Was it that you noticed that there was a little bit of friction there and you said, man, I need to go all in? Or, what gave you the sense that a lot of these other entrepreneurs didn't have?
A big part of it, like I told you I was a terrified salesperson.
Yes.
Because, my only, relationship with sales when I was an accountant was used car yards when I was auditing them. And I'd hear the salesman talking about how they just ripped off the last customer and they were laughing about it.
Yeah.
So I hated sales, right?
For sure.
But I didn't realize that, there's a whole strata of good salespeople, right? And so it was like after a couple of years, I was in a store one day and I thought, man, these guys just bought $80,000 worth of UGG boots last season from me. And I knew they Keystone, which has doubled the price. So they made 80 grand. And I thought, well, shit, they paid for all these rents, tiny little shop. Probably paid half of his employees' salaries, And I thought, that means everything else in this store, he's just profit, And so instead of being like, having sales being taking, now sales was giving. And I realized I'm a benefactor of all these stores. And so my whole attitude towards selling changed and my whole attitude to being in the store changed. Like I'd go into a store, the owner didn't have to be there. I would go over to the sheepskin section and I would fix it all up and I'd get it,
all pretty up, yeah.
And that was like my real estate now. So I was like vested in making sure every one of these guys was successful. And that also was a huge part of your brand isn't your logo, and your brand isn't the trademark, and the brand isn't the product. The brand is what customers feel about you, right? And this still applies today in the internet world. Your brand is what they feel about you, and that nearly always comes back to customer service in the long run. Even in today's internet, if those internet marketers that do not reach out for a personal connection with their customers, they'll be gone in a year, 2 years.
Wow. Now, I know you started in 78, correct?
Yeah.
Everybody asks online, there's rumors. Where did the UGG name come from?
Nobody knows. There's a couple of old guys in Australia who claim they invented it, but they can't prove it. It's just a name that sort of was, I guess, descriptive of sheepskin boots. And down there, years and years ago, 40, 50 years ago, every little sheepskin factory in Australia would sell, some sort of sheepskin boot, but they would call it UG or UGH or UGGS or UGH, all these different spellings. And nobody could ever figure out who started it.
I heard there was one rumor or story that somebody's wife said that they were ugly or something like that.
There's a million rumors.
Yeah.
I try not to go in the ugly, realm because we did our best to try and make them not ugly. They were different.
Right.
And a lot of traditional shoe people would call them ugly, but they have their own distinct look.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a pretty cool look when you know what you're looking for.
And feel.
The feel's
unparalleled compared to anything else in the marketplace.
That's a great word, unparalleled. Yeah.
Now, okay, when you first started getting sales and started noting traction, do you remember a year where financially, obviously it was on a nice trajectory, but do you remember a year where you said, "Holy cow, this is unbelievable. This is everything I dreamed of when I started"?
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that time and what you guys were experiencing?
Yeah, it was. The hardest part of the business was trying to finance the production and the growth. And it got to, that first $20,000 we thought we'd never need any money ever again.
Right, yeah.
Well, pretty soon we had to buy them out and bring in a bigger investor, and we had to buy them out and bring in a bigger investor. And each time it was, I couldn't get any bank financing because year after year, that's a fad,
Right.
Yeah, that'll never be around next year. And you come back next year, yeah, but it's a fad, it'll never be around next year.
Right.
And it got to the point where we were doing 7 million in sales, and the banks still thought it was a fad.
How quickly did it take to go from 0 to 7 million in sales?
Probably 6 or 7 years.
So
maybe 8 or 9 years.
So could you walk us through maybe the first 5 years of revenue, starting from 0? So 28 pairs the first year.
Yeah. It was then 10,000, then like 20, then 25, and then we had the big hit in the 5th year, which was the 200. So it took 5 years to really figure it out. So I had 4 summers of, summer jobs.
Yes, trying to finance it and keep it afloat.
And back then UGG was sort of like a hobby business because it wasn't paying any bills.
Right.
And I tried to get out of business. I remember coming home from I was working on a golf course, right, as a greenskeeper in the summer, and I finally decided that summer I'm giving up. In the fall I'm going to sell all the product out and I'm done. And then the first big storm hit the coast in October, and I got home drenched, from the golf course, and there must have been 25, messages on the answering machine. Hey, we need UGG boots. We want to drive down now and get them, and it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
If you guys enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you the very best in personal development content, interviews, and insight to help inspire you to take your life and your dreams and make them a reality. And also, if you want to know how to book dream guests the same way I have, you can check the link below for my top 3 secrets. So if you have a podcast or a show or whatever it is and you want to collaborate with them, if you click that link below, I'll give you those top 3 secrets to help you get in touch with anybody. And also, don't forget that The Passionate Few is available on media platforms as well. So you can subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, thank you for being one of the Passionate Few.